Hey everyone, welcome back. I haven't made a tutorial for like a single model in a while, like it's mostly been the design class. But today I actually decided I should probably do one because someone paid me to do it. I got a commission. Yes. And speaking of which, I will have my commissions open for a little bit. If you stay tuned on the YouTube channel or follow me on Instagram, you'll probably see the announcement. But the thing is, I kind of messed up because I actually sent off the model before I finished the tutorial. So that's why I'm just voicing over a photo right now, rather than, holding up the thing to the video. That's my bad. Anyways, so yeah, this model is a Robo Ky from the game Guilty Gear. It's like a fighting game, kind of like Street Fighter, but a little bit different. And yeah, so I actually made 3 of them and did some different posing. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. Let me first talk about what are we going to need. So obviously we're going to need this single uncut square of paper. Now I'm using 35 centimeter wenzhou, which is treated with methyl cellulose. But if you don't have that, that's fine. Just get something big. 35 centimeters is okay. It'll be about 11 centimeters tall. But if you can get it bigger, it's better for better shaping. Also, it should be the same color on both sides because there are some unwanted color changes. I'm pretty sure, so watch out for that. And it should be kind of thin. Like, don't use like triple tissue or tissue foil or something like that. It probably won't work super well. Then we're also going to need a crease pattern. So this one should be linked in the description, or you can kind of follow along. And then tweezers will help, especially if your paper is 35 centimeters. If it's bigger, you might not need it, but it's always helpful. And then I'm also going to be showing you how to use white glue with a little paintbrush to shape better and have it hold its form a little bit better. And I think that's about it. So let's go ahead and get started. So first thing we're going to do is, if you look at the crease pattern, it's a 32 by 32 grid. But if we want to reduce the number of creases that show up on the final model, we're going to start with a 16 by 16 grid on both directions. And then a 32 grid in only one direction. So for here, if you see what I did, I have 16, it's only 16 grid going this way, but I have 32 grid going this way. Actually, it should be like this. So our 32 grid is going to be this way, like because the body is kind of vertical, so we're going to have more of the 32 grids. And then horizontally, I'm only going to pre-crease 16 for now, and the rest of like these horizontal lines we can do later. So go ahead and do that. So 16 by 16 grid and then 32 in one direction. So pause the video, do that, and then we will continue. Okay, so you should have this grid, should look like this, and don't worry about mountain valley on the grid because we'll probably change it later. Now we're going to go and pre-crease our diagonals. So I'm just going to show you on the crease pattern what are the creases we want to pre-crease, and then you're going to go ahead and do it. So let me just let me zoom in. So I'm going to draw the creases we want, so kind of these diagonals. This one I'm just going to simplify it and just go straight like that. Normally we want to do all the diagonals, but in all honesty, it's fine just to go like that. So we want these ones. You want to pre-crease this whole Pythagorean stretch. So all of this thing is involved. And then these level shifters, it helps. It helps, I'd say. So yeah, might as well do it. And then these pleats, in all honesty, if you don't want to pre-crease these level shifting center flap stuff, it's not a huge deal. Here, we're going to pre-crease. Now for this head, you see a bunch of diagonals, and I'll just tell you that most of this you don't need to pre-crease. So what we do need to pre-crease will look something like this. Yeah, so I know it doesn't quite look like that on the crease pattern, but in reality we are going to crease it something like this, like that. Just these diagonals I'm drawing on pencil. So those are the ones you want to pre-crease. And then again up here, like that. And now I'm too lazy to draw it on the right side, but you get the idea. Okay, so I'll walk through with you on this, but if you want, you can pause the video. If you want to pre-crease it by yourself, you can pause the video, do these ones that I drew in, and then we can go ahead. So let me go ahead and bring my paper over. And so you notice how I have a mountain on the far left here. So I want to make sure my crease over here is a mountain. But again, if your paper looks like a mess of mountain valley, don't worry too much. Let's start down here in the corner. So we're going to count 6 units in. So here's 6 units, and we're going to make a diagonal line. This diagonal line is 6 units, 6 grid units, or so. And then, now this part's a little weird because we don't have our horizontals completely pre-creased. But you can kind of just pinch 1 unit diagonal here, and 1 unit diagonal here, and then 4 units down. And all that we can repeat on the other side. So that's about it for this bottom part. Let's go ahead and move up a little bit. So 11, so 3 units in and 11 up. So that's 6, 8, 10, so right here. So this, you know, and then this line is 5 units long. So out of this point here, it's 5 units. So like something like that. Okay, and it should end up at the same height. Now this line is so hopefully you have at least some crease pattern experience, or at least hopefully my pencil drawing made sense on the crease pattern. But yeah, hopefully I don't need to explain too much. So to make things a little bit easier for us, here's what I suggest. So we're going to go ahead and these diagonal lines, let's do them again over here. What's going to make things a little bit easier for us is if we do our horizontal creases in between here. So from like this diagonal line to this diagonal line, but make sure to not crease like over here in this section. Because what the paper over here will end up like on his little, I don't know, the tunic, I guess, his clothes. So if you crease on this, you'll end up with unnecessary extra creases, and you don't want it to look like that. So let's be super careful, but we can, so just only crease like from like this part to here. So like kind of like that. We don't really need the whole thing. Okay, and then we'll do that all the way, we'll do that pretty high. Now, if you might have already gridded it, that's fine too. It's just, you know, I think if you want to make a higher quality model, you definitely want to be careful about your pre-creases. Now, yeah. Now that one I actually pre-creased all the way through. The one where this points where they actually intersect, you're okay to pre-crease all the way through. But the rest you want to try to be careful. Leave this part uncreased. And about that much is pretty good. Okay, so I'm gonna keep going. So I'm just gonna keep going along these. I'm now doing these center flap ridges. A ridge just means like diagonal. So a Pythagorean stretch lies on grid points. So I'm just gonna draw on it. So it's this line is a slope of 1/3. This line is a slope of 3/4. This one is a slope of 2, and it's the mirror on the other side. So this one is a slope of 1/3 also. This one is a slope of 2. So we are missing like a little bit of grid point here. We're missing that grid point, but you can eyeball it. It's not a huge deal. And also, it doesn't really matter if it's mountain valley pre-creased, but you can just go ahead and. I find mountains usually easier. Alright, so that's about it. That's pre-creasing. That's pre-creasing for the Pythagorean stretch. It's not too difficult. Okay, now these hard structures I'm actually gonna skip, but you can definitely do that if you're not comfortable with level shifters. But I'm gonna skip it because it's not super important. Okay. Now up here it goes 2 units up, which again is a little bit awkward because we don't have our grid point, but Don't worry too much about it. We'll just swing it. And then it goes up 6 units this way. So let's make our line 6 units. And then it goes 4 this way. Or, oh, whoops, I done goofed. Okay, ignore that line. So right here where it's 4 units away from the edge, right here where it's 4 units away from the edge, and now it goes up 4 this way. And then the rest of the way 3. So 3 units. Yeah, so just make sure to follow the diagonals in the crease pattern. Okay, and now out of this Pythagorean stretch, out of this parallelogram, we go 5 units up. So let's go ahead and just pre-crease it. Now you can just pre-crease 6 units since 6 units would lie on the grid points. That's okay too. So that's pretty good for ridge creases. Go ahead and do that on the right side, and then we'll make sure we have the rest of our horizontal pleats after that. Okay, so this was probably not the most efficient video, but now we're gonna go ahead and do our horizontal pleats. One thing to note is it actually starts from a valley on the top. So normally we're used to, starting from mountain on the edge, the first one being mountain and then going in, but it actually starts from valley, so watch out for that. So let's go ahead and do that, and turn it upside down, and we're gonna start from valley. So valley and then up. So actually I'm just basically gonna do all of them as valleys. And again, watch out for the edges. So like maybe this first one is okay to do all the way through. And you'll see why, but after that we want to do just only like up to the ridges or so. Like a little bit past the ridges is okay, basically just like this much, and then all the way down to where we left off. Basically what I mean by like all the way down to the pythas, basically. Okay, so something like this. So see how my very edge over here, it has like the 16th marks, but not that many 30-second marks. Whereas in the middle, it's got like my full 30-second grid. Something like that. Make sense? So now, from the bottom is normal, kinda. So we're basically going to make mountains. Because if you look at the crease pattern, that's how it is. So basically, let's flip it over. Mountains, basically. Now this first one, we can do mountains all the way through. That's fine. But after that, we're going to try to just do, like, try not to get it on the sides. Try not to pre-crease the sides. About that much. Okay, and with that, I think we're done with pre-creasing. So now we're going to go ahead and begin the collapse. So on the crease pattern, we're going to start the collapse around here with the level shifters, and I'll show you what I mean. And then we're going to do like this big center flap here, and then we'll do these big edge flaps as we go. And everything else will just be, to simplify it, everything else will just be vertical pleats. So let's go ahead and start. So you see how we start out with these, we have 3 pleats running all the way through on both sides. So that's pretty simple. We'll just do that right off the bat. So these 3 units of vertical pleat. And just hang out like that. Alright, now we're going to start collapsing this, this edge flap here on the same one on the other side. So, yeah. And even though there's creases down here on the legs, even though there's creases down here, we're just going to do them as vertical pleats going all the way through. Just to make things a little bit easier. Something like this. Okay, so see how the edge flap is starting to come together? Now let's do the other side of the edge flap. So up here. And even though there's creases up here on top, I'm just gonna make them, you know, vertical pleats all the way through, just to make it easier. So we're starting to take shape on this edge flap on the side here. It's starting to come to shape. But before we do the middle part, we want to kind of do the same, start this collapse on the other side as well. So let's turn it over, and basically the same thing. So vertical pleats all the way through the top and the bottom. Something like that. The same thing, start to collapse the bottom. Okay, now we can start to see like a better sense of what's going on. So what we actually want is these center flaps here, this one right beneath the pytha, and then the one right below that. Those ones need to be go all the way through, like I don't really know how to describe it. Why don't you just watch? Something like this. Alright, so it's going all the way through, and then once we do these horizontal pleats, then we'll have the vertical pleats intersect through them. So this one actually needs to be folded down, or it's actually quite complicated. The thing about a BP collapse, remember, is like everything has to kind of come together at once. So that's why we don't diagram box pleated models very much. But I don't have a great sequence for this. Well, anyways. So we can start collapsing all the center flaps. This bottom one too, this 2-unit one, long one. We can start doing that also. Even though that one's a little bit different, I'll explain what I mean, but we can just kind of start taking shape. Something like this. I'm going to reinforce these valleys from the backside. So we actually have to start doing the pytha already, which is a little bit weird. Yeah, it's going to get a little weird, but kind of just hang in there with me. So the 3/4 line, the one that goes down the middle of the parallelogram, that's going to be mountain. And all the other diagonals in this pytha are going to be valley. So it looks something like this. Okay, that's the start. And then this part gets a little weird. I mean, it's kind of like a pleat. You gotta pretend like the center flap is actually a pleat. So it kind of, here's what it looks like from the back. Something like this. And it's gonna get tricky. So hang in there. I'd say this is probably one of the hardest parts of the model. This part of the collapse right here. So let me catch up the other side. So start collapsing the Pythagorean stretch. Now this second center flap, this one that's in the middle, we're actually going to want to hinge that one, swing it down. Let me focus. Swing it down like that. So from the other side, swing it down. That. Right, you see what I mean? Okay. But this top center flap is going to be swung up. And then this big center flap, the 2-unit one, we're actually going to, it's not going to be locked. We want the pleat to go over it, something like that. You see that? Whereas these pleats are now locked from these vertical pleats are going to be locking these horizontal pleats. So this part where the thing meets the pytha, it's kind of weird. It will get a little bit mushy and weird. But if you have to mush, don't worry too much because it will be hidden inside the model. Like here, the Pythagorean stretch will end up like in the shoulder somewhere. In the end, you will barely see it. So don't worry too much if this part has to get mushed. Okay, and so now once we got the Pythagorean stretch done, like the rest is pretty much more straightforward. So just give me a sec. So you see this? Okay, so now we can, we're going to try to finish the rest of this center flap here. We're going to try to finish this rest of the center flap. And that basically means we'll be running vertical pleats down. And so vertical pleats, like, they go through these horizontal ones, but it goes over this 2-unit one. Kind of like that. So there's one. And then we can do another one. Like that. And you see like there's now forming a mess over here. So we can actually go ahead and start collapsing these upper flaps. So when these vertical lines, when they hit the diagonal ridges, they reflect, and so they become horizontal pleats. horizontal pleats. And so we can start forming out these flaps over here. So every once in a while you'll be able to, something will partially lie flat and you can kind of pinch everything together. Like that. Okay, we keep going. Let's catch up at the other side now. So vertical pleats. Okay, now once these vertical pleats reach the middle here, we can kind of pre-crease this center line here, and we're going to, kind of get this bottom part to lay flat before we deal with the top. So get as much stuff to lie flat before we begin collapsing this top part. So here we're going to try to do these face center flaps at the same time as the arm stuff over here. So what that kind of looks like is we have to kind of push down on here to start forming our center flaps. And then when we have these horizontal pleats, well, now they're vertical, but normally they're going to be horizontal. When we have these horizontal pleats meeting these vertical pleats, they form like they form ridges, right? Or so. Just follow the crease pattern, because we got all these things coming together at once, which is never easy. Okay, so our center flap here is starting to form. Let's collapse the rest of it. Okay, and so remember, like on the crease pattern, we got all these cursed diagonals for the hair. I just threw that in case you didn't have the video and you were trying to fold the hair on your own. But since we have the video, I have a pretty good sequence for that, so don't need to worry about it. Just for now, collapse it as this 3-unit flap, and I'll show you how to do the hair later. But for now, I think we've got everything collapsed. So go ahead and crease everything, kind of go back in, make sure everything is nice and sharp. It'll make things easier when it'll just make things easier in general. So for the legs, it would be it's almost a normal ally stretch, except that we got this center flap here, which will be the belt. But other than that, it's pretty normal. So normally an ally stretch would end like this, but because we have our belt, we would kind of stick this thing out. And you'll have to do that on both sides. So let me catch up the other side. So this kind of sticks out here, and then carefully just kind of collapse it. And now we're done with the collapse for real. Now what we can do is we can kind of go ahead and build our little level shifters here, the ones that look like hearts. So over here, where we have our pleats, this pleated part, we're going to kind of open it up a little bit. And you're going to stick so we see we have 2 pockets, right? We have this pocket and this pocket. So we're going to stick our finger in there. But you see how when I kind of squeeze in on it, this little thing is coming up? So let's grab this, grab that, and then, yeah. These are the level shifters I explained in the design class. So you have to pull it up on both sides. So on this other pocket, same thing, we're going to just lift it up. Kind of let it come together. Now if you've pre-creased this, it should be a lot easier. It should just kind of come kind of naturally. But if you don't have it pre-creased like I do, it might be a struggle. But in the end, you should end up with this little thing sticking out like that. That's a level shifter. Okay, so we'll do that 4 more times. So we've got this other pocket next to it that we'll have to do it, and then 2 more pockets on the other side. So let me just go ahead and just do it. Like that. There is a little bit easier to see how it comes up. See, you just you have to push in from your other finger from the back. I know it's hard to see, but you see, it's kind of transparent. You see I got my finger in there, so I'm pushing and just kind of push that part. Push. And then the same thing over here. Tweezers help with this for sure. Well, yeah. I think it's not too hard to do with fingers, but I think like if you want to be able to see it, it's easier for you all to see it if I do it with tweezers, because otherwise your fingers will get in the way. You can definitely do it with fingers though, it's definitely possible. So if you folded the crease pattern, it would look something like this. You would have this thing sticking out. We actually don't want that. So I misdrew the crease pattern. Make sure that you want it to be these two little rectangular things sticking out. Not one big one, you want 2 small ones. Okay, let's do that again on the other side. Okay, so once we got it, we were going to want to fold these ones in, and then we want to like take like a book or something. This is the closest book I have. So take the book, and then you want to put it like this and kind of press down on it. To make sure everything is nice and sharp creased. Okay. And so this will help us make our clothes for Robo Ky. Are we starting to see where it's coming? Right? Somewhat? Yeah? If not, we'll be doing that pretty soon. I guess a little bit more structural stuff before we actually get into shaping is I don't know, it's a little hard to see, but you see how here it's like actually got partials here on the face? This thing? We didn't really need to pre-crease it. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So here if we fold the face up, fold the little eye thing up, if we fold it in half, now we're going to do something a little bit weird. So let's look at it from the side, pull it apart a little bit, and let me see, I don't know if I can draw this, but like this point here, this like halfway point to this point is going to be a valley, and then we're going to have mountains running like this and like that. It's a little weird, but and we have to make sure to do it on both sides at the same time. But let me start with that valley at a slope of 3, something like this. The other side, something like this. It's a little weird, and then kind of just mush it, and it'll like it'll just kind of naturally want to fall on the right slope. So don't worry too much. And the reason why we have that, the reason why we did that is we shifted it up half a unit. You see that? So I think that that just helps us make the face proportions a little bit better. Now we can go ahead and get started on the feet. There's a little bit stuff we can do. So right now I've got these 3 pleats here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of, I don't know what you call it, but I'm basically going to do how it showed in the crease pattern. Like that. So now I've got these two little flaps here that are 1 unit long each. And I'm going to pull them apart, so like fold them apart, and we're going to sort of twist them. So like grab this top one and kind of twist it to the left, and the other one should follow. So something like this. Okay, and this will help us form the boot. Alright, so go ahead and do that same thing on the other side. So next up, we're going to kind of do these little side, I don't know what you call it, the side tunics or whatever. These things that cover his side. Let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to pull them apart for a little bit more width. So it's a little tricky. So if you look at it from the back side, so we turned it around, look at it from the back side to the right. We're going to kind of pull the pleats apart. Pull it out. So like there should be 3 pleats, right? See how there's 3 pleats here? So I'm going to pull it, stretch it basically as far as you can, like that. So you see how this, we have our, it's showing like our diagonal part here, and then Yeah, something like this. Make sure it matches, because there's a few ways you could do that are incorrect. Try to make sure to match it like this. So see how this part is horizontal? Right, it shouldn't be, yeah, I don't really know how to describe it, but just make sure your thing looks like mine. Okay, that's the first pull out. And now we're gonna pull out another one. So see how we got this one layer thick thing here? We're going to unwrap that off the top. Just like that. Okay, and it's not going to lie flat, but we can actually leave this unfolded down here. That'll help us with our boot. And let's see. Oh yeah, and then for the back one, we can kind of just mount and fold it like this. Something like that. Now it's still not going to lie flat, but you can kind of just hold on to it. Like, it might feel uncomfortable, see how it's not lying flat here, but just kind of hold on to it. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Now let's go ahead and start on the hair. So I'm going to kind of show you how the hair works, because it might seem a little crazy on the crease pattern, but I assure you it's not as bad as it looks. What we're going to do is kind of like an Elias stretch. Don't really know how to describe. Okay, for one starters, let's make sure to, let's unwrap this thing. Let me just do that real quick. You might have already done that, but if not, let's make sure we have it like this. So you see how it's 3 units long? We're going to basically cut it down to 1 unit long. Something, so sort of, you'll have to definitely unfold the head a little bit. So definitely start, so like that. You see that much? Okay, so and so think like we're Elias stretching it, so that we now have 2 1-unit flaps. Looks like Mickey Mouse ears, but like 2 1-unit flaps. So here's one, and here's the other. Something like this. That's only going to get weirder. So on the right side, we can kind of just keep it as it is, kinda. Well, not quite. We'll do some stuff with this later. But for the left side is where things are gonna get really weird. We're gonna, I don't even know if it's an outside reverse fold, or we're just basically gonna bend it to the left. So kinda something like this. You'll have to turn it inside out. So I guess in some sense it is a reverse fold. Turn it inside out, and then like this, and then this point here you have to poke that in. So poke that in, and then from the back it will look something like this. So these are all new creases we're making. These are all these crazy diagonals that we're making right now when we do that. Make sense? Sorta? So that's where we're at. And okay, there's a little bit more. So see how we have this corner here? We're going to kind of rearrange the layers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this part behind it. I'm going to pull that up and bring that in front, all the while pushing that thing in. So that was a weird move. You might have to rewind that. But now we've got our hair like this. And this is what's shown in the crease pattern, this L-shaped hair thing. Now, I mean, there is a little bit more we can do, so let's, you see now if we look again, there's this one layer here. So we can kind of try to pull that out to front. I don't know. This is a weird collapse. And if you can't get this one, it's not too big a deal. You'll lose out on like one hair. So if you can't do this move, don't worry too much. So that was the hair is definitely very tricky. But it makes the most of our 3-unit flap. So on this thing sticking up, we're going to kind of pull the layers apart and separate this into 2 flaps. So that's what this little diamond thing is up there. So I'm going to pull it apart like this, and it's going to kind of squash. It's kind of like a squash and petal fold somewhat. Yeah, and then fold behind. So now we've got 2 flaps. So you see we have 2 flaps now? Yeah, I guess another thing. So if you look on the left side of the hair, you see we've got this little thing here in between. So that might get in our way when we're trying to shape the eye, because it's like sticking into the eye flap. So we're going to get rid of it. And the way we do that is kind of mushy, but basically grab it and swivel it up, mush it away. Like that. See how it went up? You just need to at least get it up like a little bit, so we have our room to do our eye shaping. I guess we can also pull the layers apart up here. So what we can do is we can pre-crease like this at a 45-degree angle and kind of pull the layers apart. Grab that flap, and again, these are all kind of optional. If you can't get all these weird sinks and stuff, all these weird outside reverse folds and pull outs and manipulations, don't worry about it too much. You just might miss a few hair, but otherwise it's not a huge deal. So now I've got like a bunch of hair. So I've got 2 hairs here on the left, 2 hairs here on the right, 2 hairs in the middle. So overall pretty nice. which we'll shape later.